Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar, 5 Key Behaviors to Incentivize. We're excited to get started here, but before I begin, I just wanted to let you know how we're managing our time here. In a moment, I'm going to hand things over to our CEO and founder, Rob Hoehn, who's going to share a presentation that he gave at Crowdopolis last month. He's going to speak for about 20 minutes along with myself about our findings here, and then we're going to have about 10 minutes for questions. We're going to try and hold all questions for the end. However, as the presentation progresses, I'm going to be keeping an eye on the questions feed. So if there is a good stopping point, I'll step in and see if we can answer it for you in the moment. And if not, we'll be able to see it later in our questions feed when we get to the questions portion of the presentation. I also wanted to let everyone know that we are recording this webinar, so it will be possible to access it after the event is over. We'll send out a notice to everyone who registered with a link to where they can find it online. And of course, if you have any questions about IdeaScale or the event today, you can just go ahead and forward them to me. And in the meantime, I'm going to hand things over to Rob.
Thank you, Jessica. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining today, of course. I'm the co-founder of IdeaScale, and as you probably already know, we have an ideation tool, very easy to use. It allows customers or employees to submit their ideas and then vote on those ideas and, of course, comment on them. Obviously, the best ideas bubble up to the top. Since we started, we've actually collected 4 million votes, 350,000 ideas, and a million comments already. Um, so today we're here to talk about the fact that there really is no ROI on simply understanding alone. We see a lot of our customers implement our tools and then sadly kind of walk away or don't really focus that much on the initiative going forward. They might kind of try to let the initiative run on its own. Um, and sometimes we even see some poor soul moderating the community all on their own. And this is obviously a pretty big burden to bear just for one moderator. So kind of what we want to point out today is that to really get the maximum ROI on any crowdsourcing project, we really need the best community managers, excuse me, your best moderators, even your admins to kind of get out there and really get in the community and try to move the discussion forward. So what we've done is we kind of spoke to some of our best customers, and we tracked down a few PhDs and kind of argued with some of our friends over late night beers, and we came up with some behaviors that we think can try to help you increase your chance of success with your community. Now, some people are familiar with IdeaScale. They might know that we have a badge system. And so we looked at these 5 behaviors and we tried to come up with some badges to match up those behaviors and try to encourage those behaviors within your IdeaScale community. And we've already actually released these badges, and we'll talk about them in the presentation. But we do want to remind people that this is pretty simple stuff. I mean, you don't necessarily have to use a badge system to do it. You can always just reward people with something as simple as a lunch date with the CEO of the company, even some candy, or some people even reward a Pontiac. So we tried to generalize this as much as we can, but if you do have questions, don't hesitate to ask at the end of the presentation. Now, the other thing we did here is we took these behaviors, we took these badges, and we tried to match them up with some characters from the hit TV show The Office, just as a way to kind of reiterate the behavior and help you remember these different kinds of behaviors. So the first one we have is impact.
So the thing to remember here is that you're trying to get the biggest return you can from the ideas that are contributed to your community, right? A lot of people, really in the spirit of transparency and openness, will just throw up an open ideation form and be like, I just want to hear ideas. I really want to encourage people to feel open and contribute and really collaborate. But one of the things that they forget, and it gets mentioned a lot, so we're going to repeat it here today, is that it's really important to define the goals that you have for your community up front. You can't make an impact if you don't know what you're looking for, right? And it makes it easier on both sides of the fence. It helps your community members be able to submit ideas that are going to get moved further down the line. If they don't know what it is that you're looking for, if you're not communicating them with them what your goals are, their ideas are never going to get past the submission phase. The person that we've used here as our example is Andy Bernard. And if you're familiar with The Office, you know that Andy is pretty much a goal-oriented person. If he knows what he's supposed to do, then he'll do anything to achieve a goal. Punch a hole through a wall or get a tattoo on his butt to help encourage the sales team reach their revenue goals. But without a goal, he is essentially useless. So we've created a badge called the Striker, and the Striker badge goes to the person who's had the most amount of ideas progress to the next stage of the ideation process. And the way that you help them do that, obviously, is making sure that they understand what you're looking for. One of our examples that we use here at IdeaScale is one of our communities was Hoehn is Able. And they had a very specific goal that they laid out from the beginning. Their CEO said that they wanted to save 1% on revenue from employee-generated ideas alone by the end of the year. So they got employees thinking about cost savings from the beginning. They created a special addition to the tool that showed like the proposed or estimated amount that idea would save. They were able to upload spreadsheets that proved out what the cost savings were. And they actually were able to meet that goal, not within a year, but within 3 months, just from their employee ideas. So that's a whole lot to say, that just define your goals and communicate them, and that's going to help other people succeed.
I love it. I love that Cain is able example. I believe that's actually a case study that they can download, right, Jessica? If they want
Yeah,
to read
it is.
more on
It's
that.
available on our resources page, and I can share that link.
Cool. So next we have reach, of course. Now you have your goal in place. We want to know who to invite to the community. Um, we want to encourage people to actually go outside their immediate network and invite other people in. So, you may know, for example, Bob from accounting will have a great idea, but you probably don't know that his buddy in the controller's office probably has even better ideas. Um, so the goal here is to not just get people to participate, but actually inviting people to the community. Now, again, I understand, and we've said this a few times, this isn't exactly rocket science, but we do see this behavior kind of overlooked when people are implementing a crowdsourcing project. So we, of course, picked Pam Beasley as our example character from The Office. She is very diplomatic, and she knows exactly who to invite, right? She always wants to try to get everyone involved, even if it's Angela and Stanley, who, in case you don't watch The Office, they're the most non-interested employees at Dunder Mifflin. Um, so we created a badge for a character like Pam called the host. And this basically is awarded to the person that invites the most people to the community. Again, very simple, but actually very powerful. And so next we have engagement.
Right. And if you're familiar with The Office, you might be surprised that we picked Dwight Schrute for our Engager badge recipient. Engagement is the whole reason that you're doing this, right? Dwight, unfortunately, is not very diplomatic, and he is a little bit outside of the mainstream. But what Dwight does, that not everybody else does, is that he gets people to comment on what he's doing. He shows up every day, and he's doing everything in his power to become the best assistant to the regional manager that he can be. But no matter what he's doing, no matter how harebrained, he's getting people to pass judgment and participate in whatever crazy idea he's presented next. And in any case, he gets people to make a decision on something either way. And if you're familiar with some of our past webinars, we had a webinar on the subject of engagement. And the idea is, if you reward people not for participating in your community, not for necessarily generating the best idea, but make a reward that that awards the behavior of getting people to comment and collaborate and give feedback, then not only are you going to get a higher level of engagement, but you're going to increase your idea quality by 40%. So it's not rewarding members for participation, but for generating that level of interaction. So that's why we created the Engager badge. And the Engager badge goes to the community member that's doing that, that gets not just the most amount of votes, but the most comments, the most votes on those comments, the most social shares, the most up and down votes. Um, so that's what you want to keep in mind when you're thinking of other behaviors to reward.
All right. And next up, of course, is the cat herder badge, and that has to do with increasing satisfaction. So, every CEO obviously wants to make everyone happy and they want to be loved. And we actually find that community members are always more satisfied when the moderators are actually taking some kind of action, right? So we chose Michael Scott, of course. I think this was an obvious choice. He is the world's best boss, according to the coffee mug that he walks around with. And he does everything in his power to get people to like him. He's kind of like the great moderator. Um, so again, we created the cat herder badge, and this is awarded to the moderator with the most activity. So in our context, that would be comments, votes, approval of new members, merging duplicates together. There's actually a lot of tasks that the moderator um, can do in an IdeaScale community. So we would award the cat herder to that moderator with the most activity. So, and along those lines, we always try to remind our customers not to treat your moderators like simple janitors, right? They're more than just cleaning up the community. They're actually keeping the community very engaged and very active. Um, and they're there kind of more for just approving things and cleaning up the community, kind of like we said before. So one of the examples that we always talk about, and I think Jessica kind of touched on it already, is that once employees start to feel engaged, they're actually more likely to recommend their company's product to another friend, um, or at least that's what she said. That's our Michael Scott joke. So implementation and costs, Jessica.
So this is the last behavior that we're going to talk about, and once again, it may seem pretty obvious, but the one of the biggest challenges about an ideation community is that there you get lots of ideas and lots of great ideas even, but there are a few people that really know what ideas are feasible and right for you to implement. Jim Halpert, of course, is our example here. He is the voice of reason. No matter how crazy or spun out Michael's brainstorming session might get, he's going to rein it back in. He's able to prank Dwight but still get the job done. And so we've created a badge, the Tesla badge, and that's for the person who's had the most amount of ideas moved to completion. Um, and the thing we want to say here is that it's good to award the community member that can come up with ideas that are the most implementable, because you risk something in asking for ideas that you can't implement. One of our stories that we like to share here is the Netflix prize. It's probably one of the most well-known examples of crowdsourcing that's out there. I'm sure you've heard of it, but if you haven't, it was a prize that they put out to the community at large for anyone who could generate an algorithm, a predictive algorithm that would help them make movie recommendations based on past viewing behavior that improved the accuracy of those recommendations by 10% or more. It went on for a couple of years, and a crack team of mathematicians banded up and got together and did, in fact, break the 10% barrier. They got the $1 million. But what people don't know most of the time is that Netflix realized that they couldn't afford to implement it, and they ended up cratering the project. And they still feel good about having done it, but they spent a lot of money and they spent a lot of time on something that they weren't able to bring to fruition in the end. An opposite and equal example over here at IdeaScale is that we had a large restaurant chain. They wanted to create a company-wide cost savings challenge, and they got lots of great ideas, and they were able to save money. But one of our favorite examples, just because it's an example of a just do it idea, really easy to implement example, was there was a waitress in one of their stores that said instead of putting ketchup bottles on every single table at the restaurant, that they serve 2-ounce ramekins of ketchup on the side with dishes that it was appropriate for them to serve ketchup with. And that idea that they were able to implement because they had all the tools and the abilities to execute it immediately, that idea saved them $250,000 in 1 year. So sometimes the best ideas, the ones with the best ROI, are also the simplest ones. So keeping that in mind as you go along is also helpful.
Yeah, and I think with the ramekin example, Jessica, what I love about that story is that, you know, the restaurant chain knew that the waitress, uh, like she knew what was implementable and what wasn't, right? So she picked an idea that was most implementable, and she knew it would save a lot of money, right?
Right, right.
So I thought it was neat that she knew that up front. So um, okay, well, we want to conclude really quickly that we can start doing this in your community now. If you're with IdeaScale, you'll have these 5 badges. You can start using them. If you have any questions about these badges or any other badges, don't be afraid to ask our support team, our sales team, or right now. You can submit a question over there in the GoToWebinar panel. This is really easy to do. We just tried to make it fun, of course, with gamification. But again, like we said, you can implement this yourself with real world prizes. Doesn't have to be these badges in particular. Um, and I guess is a good time to ask for questions. Jessica, do you have any questions out there?
Nothing in the questions feed yet, so I just want to remind everyone that, go ahead and type in your question and we'll respond to it as quickly as we can in the order that we get them.
We should mention a couple. There were a few questions I think we had when we did this presentation live. We could probably address, right?
Sure, sure. Yeah. Well, so
Well,
one
one of
of
them.
the
Oh, go
ones
ahead.
we got was about the efficacy of rewards, like what rewards
Right.
tallied with the badges that people found effective, right?
Um, sorry, I didn't hear the question. I'm
I
sorry, Jessica.
It was like, not just the
Oh,
badges, but sometimes people who received those badges were also rewarded in other ways with like a
sure. Yeah,
lunch with the
we
CEO.
always talk about like the President's Save Award, which I think. Oh, we don't have a case study on that one. Really interesting. President Obama has been running this program for 4 years now, I believe. Um, and basically, federal employees can submit ideas on saving money in government, um, and then I think the citizens can vote on it now. They used to not be able to do that, but the citizens can also go and vote on those ideas. And the winner, of course, gets to meet the president. Um, Another great example of very low cost award. And of course, the project itself saves the government millions of dollars every year. So
Right, right. Well,
custom badges, that always comes up as a question, right, Jessica?
right, of course.
We can do custom badges, and actually, one of the even simpler approaches is sometimes we can work with our customers to kind of skin the badge. So the logic behind the badge would be the same, but we would kind of brand the award to kind of match the look and feel of your company. So that's something we do pretty often, actually.
We had a question just come in here. The question was, how do you measure the quality of an idea in that example that we gave about the incentives study? That was a piece of research that we found. And the way that the research was organized was that the ideas were scored by a panel of experts. Um, so I think that in that case, it was about UN policies. And so they had people who were good were particularly subject matter experts when it came to that kind of content. And they had them evaluate ideas across a couple of different communities, measuring a couple of different incentive programs. And the quality of the ideas is they were, I think it was maybe on a 5-point scale, increased by 40% when they used this particular method of incentivizing their community members when they incentivize them for interaction and not necessarily participation.
Jessica, did you did a webinar on that
I
that
did, and if
report, right?
maybe I'll send out a link to the video of that webinar too, so that people can see how that particular research was organized by the person who executed the study.
Great. Yeah, that was a really good one.
What about how do you involve people throughout the implementation process is one question that we got recently. It's not just, we submit do people just submit their ideas and then they can check out or
Sure. I mean, so engagement, I mean, some people say we're kind of in the business of engagement, right? How much can we do to get people to come back to the community and continue to participate? But that only goes so far, and I think a lot of that really depends on the company. But like I said, there's only so much the software itself can do. Um, but one of the examples we actually see a lot of is coupling up the crowdsourcing ideation project with in-person meetings. Maybe they go and have a big company meeting and they talk about the top 30 ideas and they kind of do a panel discussion about that. That's something that's pretty common. We've heard about. I believe one of our customers in the UK, Ordnance Survey, actually will do weekend retreats for the top idea authors and actually invite them out to kind of go through their ideas in more detail and again try to figure out what ideas are most implementable. Did you have any other examples, Jessica, that you could think of? I know those are some pretty good ones.
yeah, I know some of our clients will invite people to online focus group sessions. They'll find people who have similar ideas or expertise on certain of those ideas, and then they'll ask them if they wouldn't mind collaborating with developers or the product team to give further insight on whatever those ideas were. And then some other people, just keep the communication simple thereafter. Sometimes they'll just make sure to thank them for their idea, and just keep them in communication about whether or not it's implemented or if there's an reward associated with it. So you can go, to both extremes, right? You can have
Sure.
just like thank yous, messages, and badges, or you can have weekend retreats and meetings with the president
Or a Pontiac.
or Pontiac, indeed.
Good. Is there any
And
more questions?
all of these badges are available today, Rob.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Um, I don't have any more questions coming in through our questions feed here. Is there anything else that we haven't responded to in past presentations of this, Rob?
I think that's all the questions we've had. It's pretty simple. Like I said, you can start using this stuff today. And if we don't answer your question now, feel free to go to support.ideascale.com, and you can ask the question there, and we'll probably respond to it.
Definitely. And if you can see it here on this slide, obviously there's a white paper that goes more in depth on some of these like research findings at ideascale.com /understanding.
Oh yeah, good point. Well, great. Thanks everyone for attending. And like I said, if you have any questions, just let us know.
Thanks again. Thanks, Rob.
You're welcome. Bye.